Welcome to Roll for Geekiness. J, A, and Q here, and we just got back from Twin Tiers Comic-Con in Horseheads, New York.
Or T2C2.
So, what do we know about Twin Tiers Comic-Con that we'd like to share?
So T2C2 takes place in the event center at the Arno Mall, and it's a converted old Macy's, I believe.
It's the space that used to be Macy's in the Arnott Mall. Yeah, now it's the Arnott Event Center, which was an interesting way for the property owners to
utilize it.
Yeah, reuse that space. Let's see. So this is the 7th T2C2.
Mm-hmm.
They skipped, I think they said 3 years since, pandemic was a thing and they weren't able to hold the event. They were saying it's been like 3 years since they've gotten together. So maybe that means they missed two?
Yeah, they skipped two, because they skipped 2020 and 2021.
Which makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
That would be logical.
Yeah, so it's been 3 years since they've had one,
right.
But they skipped two.
Anyway,
yes.
And we did do some brief research ahead of time. We found that the numbers from 3 years ago were about 3,500 attendees over the 2 days, which I think that felt about on par with what we saw.
Mm-hmm. As is par for the course for 2-day events. It's a Saturday-Sunday event.
Yep. And there were definitely times I think the space that they had was a little crowded, maybe a little small, for how many people were there. But they made good use of this space. They set up some pretty high dividers so they could block areas off for panels and for other stuff. So that was...
Yeah, overall it's a pretty small space, but with this event they were efficient with that, and they managed to fit a lot into a not as big space.
I mean, I think this was obviously the first time it's been in that event space since 3 years ago. That was probably still a Macy's. So I think it sounded like this event has been in different spaces over the now 7 occurrences of it. So they still haven't kind of found their happy medium of like a home for this event. So I hope they can find a space that's maybe got a little bit more room for them to grow into. Maybe put in another panel room so you could have parallel tracking like that going. And I think then they'd kind of have everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
So what was going on?
So we did have one panel room off to the side, which wasn't so much as a room as a curtained off space, but the presenters had mics and it worked for the most part for being able to hear people. I didn't feel like it was too distracting, the fact that you weren't really separated from the rest of the con by a solid wall.
The only thing is with the mic situation, they had probably around 3 or 4 for most of the panels, but it seemed like they only had 2 microphones. So I understand it's hard to always remember to talk into a microphone, but there was points in some of them where if you were closer to the front you might be able to hear what they were saying, but they weren't speaking into a microphone, so if you're in the back half of the room it'd be harder to discern what it was that they were saying. But
yeah,
there was mics, so
yeah, overall I was surprised that I wasn't more distracted by the fact that there was so much commotion going on outside of the portion of the panel room. So there was that. There were a lot of vendor tables.
That space was crowded. So that's why I was saying they could have done with some more space, because they had the barest minimum amount of space for there to be aisles between the rows of exhibitors. They had some attractions in there too, which was interesting. They had the replica car from the Munsters. They had a replica car from Supernatural. They had some replica vehicles that just had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. logos on them. So that was interesting that they were able to drive those into the event space. So that lent to an experience that you don't necessarily find in every convention hall. And a couple people there who were just kind of there to like do photo shoots. There was like a TARDIS. There was Batman and Batgirl doing a thing. There was obviously the vehicles that I mentioned. So yeah, like there were opportunities like that as well. Yeah, I also had a lot going on for like a local Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Local Comic-Con. Yeah, and their location was interesting, and they try to make that a marketing bit, which I thought that was an interesting spin by saying that we are 4 hours or less from New York City, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, State College, PA, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany. You know, obviously a lot closer to some of those than other, in like pretty much smack in the middle of New York State. But yeah, it was funny that they're like, yeah, we're so close, and it's like, yeah, but is anyone gonna come from New York City? I don't know. I don't know that we ran into anybody who had driven up from New York City for this. I don't know that
at least that we know of.
Sure. I don't know that they had like big enough special guests to draw people from that far away. But
in all fairness, I appreciate them trying to highlight though that
yeah,
they are a con that will pull from a lot of places. Especially in upstate, I know they were trying to say the surrounding area or within that 4-hour radius, but I appreciated knowing that we were probably going to see a lot of people or run into a lot of people who do live more locally, and therefore there might be a little bit more of a chance to have a conversation or connect or have had even some similar experiences in terms of cons or things you've attended.
Mm-hmm. Yes, while we have never disclosed our exact location, this wasn't necessarily in our backyard, but it was pretty short drive for us, relatively speaking, especially compared to some other things we've been to lately.
Yeah.
So yeah, knowing that it's going to be a relatively local
Right.
Pool of attendees, that everyone there is going to be probably within about 2 hours of us, give or take.
Yeah.
I mean that, and I feel like that was part of what we kind of went there expecting, and that definitely bared out as we saw. A lot of the people we ran into were from that
general area,
general vicinity, and yeah, I think again, because it was a smaller event, and because people were, I don't know, maybe because people were a little more local, I don't know, but there were definitely more chances to chat with people than we've experienced at some of the other events we've been to lately. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of times you're at a large event, you'll stop, you might comment on somebody's bit, you might talk for a couple minutes, you know, but usually everyone's got some place to go. There wasn't a lot of demands on people's time at an event like this one, and so I think there were quite a number of people that we ended up chatting with for 10, maybe even 15, 20 minutes, about like, oh yeah, this part of this prop or this part of the thing, and you know, and then leaving those on a note of not just like, thanks for the photo and I'll tag you later, but like, yeah, shoot me a message and I'll send you the links to that stuff that we were talking about. So there's definitely like a little bit more connecting with people, which we were hoping for, and we certainly got. Yeah, so that kind of leads into cosplay, which is often why we're going to these events, and usually one of the things we like to touch on. So I think we came away figuring 50%.
Yeah.
About 50% of the people there were in cosplay of some sort or costume of some sort, and that's high. That's a pretty high percentage overall, and to see that at a relatively small event.
Especially with what I was expecting, with the fact that it's attached to a mall. So I felt like it might just be bringing in people that were shopping like, ooh, what's this? But it was a surprisingly high amount of cosplayers to me, but
yeah,
it's good. That's a bonus to me.
Yeah, it was great, and like, and the level of the cosplay that we saw was high. I mean, we participated in the cosplay contest, and man, the judges were saying afterwards, like, this has been the toughest one to judge yet. Like, everybody brought their A game, and they did. There was some really great stuff.
Yeah, I think tying back into that whole piece about community and just getting to connect, there was once again a wide range of people's investment in their cosplay or level of, I think, right.
Or how long they've been doing it, which
Mm-hmm.
tends to correlate, but not always.
Yeah, but no, I appreciated that. Obviously, one of the judges was explaining that her maybe specialty is like last minute cosplays,
Yeah.
and using a lot of hot glue, right, and things to just kind of keep things together. And I appreciated that the message was not that you have to cosplay in a certain way, but that all cosplay is acceptable in whatever form works for you and in whatever way you kind of want to go about it, and that you don't have to necessarily, like, people's skills do progress oftentimes, but you don't have to have some kind of set trajectory for what your own cosplay journey looks like. So I just really appreciated that, and people were really, it seemed like, more interested here than anywhere else we've gone, but once again, that might be a size issue. It seemed like here people were more interested in actually talking about, oh, tell me about the thing you made, or I would ask people what they had done and get a really detailed answer back or be able to ask for tips. So that was really lovely.
Overall, my takeaway from it is that it's a great community, very welcoming, and everyone's nice about it.
Yeah, I really just appreciated the general vibe and all things considered, which, once again, as we've talked about, sounds a little snobby, and I don't mean it this way, but it is a local convention, and local conventions oftentimes don't have the same amount of resources, right, or accessibility, right, around certain things. So I just really appreciated that they did a lot with what they had, and it just felt like a good con. I wasn't thinking, oh, this is good for a small con. I was thinking, this was fun.
It's a good con. I'll give it 7 positive remarks out of 8.
7 out of 8. Okay. I was gonna say 7 pumpkins out of 10, but I think that would easily jump to an 8 if they had a slightly larger venue. And maybe added a second panel track. That might even push up to a 9. I think it's a solid event for the size and location.
Yeah, speaking to that point, I'd give this a solid 7.5. I'm sorry I hit you with my mallets out of 10. The space was at times a little bit crowded, but I had a really good time.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're in upstate New York and it's mid-November-ish, check out Twin Tiers Comic-Con. It was
T2C2.
It was a good time. So with that, it's time to roll the die.
13.
And until next time, remember,
It's not a mistake, it's battle damage.